What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV here, back again for another Tottenham update, and the manager hunt continues, and we have a new front runner. Julian Nagelsmann has surprisingly been sacked by Bayern Munich. Just yesterday, Thomas Tuchel, who was obviously one of the names in the hat to join Tottenham, has taken over from Bayern Munich, and overnight, Julian Nagelsmann has come from a manager who wasn't even talked about as joining Tottenham to being the odds-on favourite and front-runner for the Tottenham job. And all of a sudden, all these links are coming out about Julian Nagelsmann joining Spurs. Here to discuss everything today, by the way, we do have Sai with me. I forgot to introduce him before, but better late than never, as they say. I'll just get into the talking points about Julian Nagelsmann, and then we'll get Sai's opinion. First of all, Matt Law has said Tottenham are set to seek talks with Julian Nagelsmann, who has developed an affinity for the North London club and was known to once own a replica Tottenham shirt. He also says that Tottenham want to hold talks with, Sammy Mokbel says Tottenham want to leap at the opportunity to hold talks with Julian Nagelsmann. Sportsmail understands that in previous attempts by Spurs to discuss the manager's position, the German coach, they inform that the German coach has a soft spot for the North London club, raising hope that he may consider joining Spurs. Ali Gold has had his say. He says if there is one club that might be able to quickly tempt Julian Nagelsmann to come, it could well be Tottenham. He says Nagelsmann forged a real connection with Tottenham during the Mauricio Pochettino tenure and became a fan favourite of their style of play under the Argentinian. Football Insider Sports PO, who broke the news of Arnaut Danjuma joining Tottenham. He says that Tottenham have made Julian Nagelsmann their first choice candidate, now ahead of Mauricio Pochettino after his sacking from Bayern Munich. Sky Sports has said Tottenham are keeping tabs on Nagelsmann to replace Conte, but it's unclear whether the German will want to return to management now or in the summer. And Dan Kilpatrick says that Tottenham are expected to consider Nagelsmann as a potential for Antonio Conte. And just now, actually, Gary Jacob has been talking about Nagelsmann. He said the Tottenham hierarchy would like to speak to Nagelsmann about becoming their head coach for next season, but it's also that Nagelsmann would like to take his time before taking another job. However, representatives are aware of the Tottenham situation, so things are hotting up surrounding Julian Nagelsmann. Things move very, very quickly in football. If you asked me 40 hours ago, Nagelsmann was in the Champions League quarter-final. He was level on points at the top of the Bundesliga. He had won 8 out of 8 Champions League games. He had lost 3 games in all competitions this season for Bayern Munich. They had scored 112 goals in 37 games. 48 hours later, he's been sacked. Thomas Tuchel has been appointed, and all of a sudden he's a front runner for the Spurs job. Si, what do you make of all of this?
Well, it's never a dull day in Spurs camp, is it? Obviously, we saw some posts and information coming out yesterday in relation to all of that, and arguably, I guess, the speed, I suppose, to us as the general public, it looked like it was quite fast, but it's obviously been something that's been in play for some time between those kind of triangular parties, and of course, Tuchel was one of the managers that was kind of heavily linked with us over the last few weeks, especially as the capitulation really of Conte as in his press conference and stuff. So it's quite amazing, really, because it's the kind of manager that I've always admired, to be honest. I'm not going to be as if I know every single thing about him, but for sure we all like the way that Bayern have been playing. I'm quite staggered, really, that this situation is even occurring, and it's clearly something relatively big in the background that we perhaps are not fully aware of yet that has allowed this kind of situation to come about. To our advantage or not is yet to be seen. Pochettino was probably one of the big head runners in people's minds, obviously nostalgia and emotion. Tuchel would have been that different kind of option, but now this has been thrown into the works. It's absolutely crazy, and it's now a question, Sim, really, about do we react now? Is there time to put something in place for next season or June, whenever that all opens up? Or potentially another alternative, and it's now a big balancing act because Conte's abroad. Is it time? I think there's now all this talk about players getting on Conte's back and vice versa. we kind of knew.
We'll get into that side. We'll get into Antonio Conte. Don't you worry. But Nagelsmann Nagelsmann is a manager who Tottenham have wanted for a long time. They wanted him when he first, I think, when Pochettino first got sacked, and he went to Leipzig.
Yeah.
We also wanted Nagelsmann when Mourinho got sacked, and then we missed out on him because he went to Bayern. So Tottenham have been interested in Julian Nagelsmann for a very long time. He's one of the most up and coming. Well, I have to say he's not up and coming anymore because he's just been at Bayern Munich, but he was one of the most up-and-coming managers in Europe for a very long time. He's only 35 years old, so he's one of the youngest managers, probably the youngest manager apart from Mason Tottenham will have in one of the youngest managers Tottenham will have in their history. And he's Nagelsmann is a manager who would excite the Tottenham fans with the style of play. He's one of the best offensive coaches there is in Europe at the moment, and I think just at the moment, Bayern are kind of panicked because they're massive fans of Thomas Tuchel, and with Madrid and Tottenham sniffing around, maybe they felt like they might miss the opportunity of getting Thomas Tuchel in, and they've missed out on him a few times as well, and they don't want to miss the boat on Thomas Tuchel. So maybe it felt like now's the time to act. But I feel like they're panicking a bit with the whole Nagelsmann situation because they're really not doing badly. A statement from Oliver Kahn saying they judged the situation from a footballing standpoint since January and they felt like they were going in the wrong direction. But overall picture, this is a manager who's won 8 out of 8 Champions League games this season. They brushed aside PSG in the last 16. Yes, they're not top of the league in the Bundesliga right now, but they're only 1 point behind Dortmund in the race for the Bundesliga. I know Bayern Munich are used to being 15 points ahead, and if they're not 15 points ahead, I guess it might be a crisis. But they're doing he's doing a fairly good job. He won the Bundesliga last season. He did a fantastic job with Leipzig before that. He knocked us out actually of the Champions League. And we had Mourinho. He was manager of Leipzig back then. He did a fantastic job at Hoffenheim as well. So for me, he's one that I really wanted. I think all the Tottenham fans really wanted when Mourinho got sacked, and it didn't. We couldn't get him over the line because he joined Bayern. But now looks like there's a small window where maybe we could convince him to come unless Real Madrid are sniffing around. And I feel like we would be stupid not to throw everything we can at getting him in now. Obviously, Conte is going to be out the door. But the question is for you, Si, if we had to wait till the summer to get him, or let's say Pochettino was ready right now to come, or Nagelsmann says I'll come, but I want to make my decision in the summer. What do you do? Do you wait till the summer and get Nagelsmann, or do you say okay, let's go for Pochettino right now?
Well, this is the big question, isn't it? Because actually, is that time even available for us to have that kind of opportunity? And typically, when a manager tends to leave a role, with very extreme circumstances, they jump into another one. It's kind of like the rebound effect in a relationship, right? It's
you would assume just after just being in a high-profile job for 18 months, you'll probably want a bit of a break anyway, just to assess things. He probably doesn't want to jump into the deep end of a new job.
Yeah, I think the magnitude I can imagine in his head is exactly the points you just made about their transition in the Champions League is still going really well. They're a point behind in the league, as you said as well. And it's not entirely the end of the world unless you're comparing it to the seasons before. That's got to be something big in your head to be like, hang on a minute, I thought, it's not as it's been in the last few seasons, the point differences at the top, but it's still incredibly impressive. Incredibly great football that they play as well. Some fantastic players, great man management of all different types of players there. That's going to be something to hit hard in the head, I think, unless there's something, as I said, we don't know, obviously, in the background. They could have been arguing for some time. They maybe having just clash of relationship after being there for so long in that short period of time, as it were. So,
let me just add on to that point. The report from Fabrizio Romano yesterday has said that Julian Nagelsmann is said to have been very shocked and disappointed for the outcome that he's been sacked and didn't see it coming, basically. And apparently, he actually found out that he was going to get sacked on social media, and then obviously he was officially sacked today by the club after being called into work. He was actually because of the international break, he was on a skiing trip. I had a few days off, and apparently found out on social media while he was skiing that he was set to be sacked. So that goes into your point that he must be must not thought really that anything was going that wrong, that he was going to get sacked.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't fall off his skis or something. But it's just generally quite bizarre. It reminds me of almost like when Martin Jol went, and the weird hysteria behind that. Like there's maybe a slight problem here, but you're not expecting anything, and all of a sudden half time you catch wind you're not going to be here after 90 minutes. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting situation. Maybe, just maybe, throwing out potential theories like Tuchel's your agents and whatnot, pushing that to say, oh, well, actually, we've got a lot of interest from XYZ clubs right now. It's either now or never. And I still don't understand how the board of Bayern at this moment in time, this very moment in time, could justify like 3/4 of the way of the season through. We're not talking about like they're in 4th or 6th or anything like this. Literally in the grasp of it and doing well in the Champions League. Given the end of the season, it's just the weird, bizarre. It's the only thing in my head that remotely sounds like a theoretical, plausible situation is that Tuchel's camp was perhaps pushing that at that period of time. And it's always about money. It's about timing and everything like this, that option came because it could have been a question of, oh, we don't think we're going in the right direction with Nagelsmann. And it's like Tuchel's going to come in potentially in the summer, but they don't have time to do that. So we need to act now. And it's just really... I can't get my head around it, to be honest. But
yeah, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. Yeah, it could be manna from heaven for us, to be honest.
Yeah.
If we manage to snap Nagelsmann up, at this point. But it's one of those ones where if we're going to get him, we have to go super hard to get him right now. We can't be weighing around because this is a manager who's going to have a lot of interest surrounding him. Already, there's talk of PSG and Real Madrid sniffing around him already. We know PSG, the job that's going to open up. Ancelotti, his future is very much uncertain at Real Madrid. So when it comes to Nagelsmann, if I feel like that we have to get him right now, if we're going to get, I know I guess look, if he's going to wait around, then there's nothing we can do. If he's going to assess his options in the summer, there's not much we can do. But the only thing I would say in terms of Spurs fans getting excited about him joining, I do believe it's clear that Tottenham are definitely interested, but there's no at the moment significant report about genuine talks or offers or anything like that. I know he's only just been sacked, so why would there be? But all the headlines are saying Tottenham want to talk to him. Tottenham expect to consider Nagelsmann. Tottenham are keeping an eye on Nagelsmann. Tottenham want to make him their first choice, but nothing is said yet. They actually made any sort of serious contact. But then again, he only got officially sacked today. Actually, as well, Tottenham still technically have a manager. So I guess that leads us on to our next point, which we'll talk about now, Antonio Conte. He is still here, and actually, Sky Sports are reporting today Conte staying until the end of the season, until his contract is up, has not been completely ruled out, according to Sky Sports News, due to the fact that Tottenham at the moment can't agree compensation with Antonio Conte. They want him to walk away from the $4 million he's basically due from now to the end of the season. He's obviously demanding to be sacked and demanding all that compensation, although Sky Sports do also report that one source is saying that he is expected to leave his role, and I think most people do expect him to leave his role. But the fact that him staying to the end of the season cannot be completely ruled out is a bit bizarre, I have to say. Paul O'Keefe, who is known as a reliable source of inside knowledge, has stated that he doesn't believe that Antonio Conte will be back at THFC this season. He believes he's gone back to Italy for good. At the moment, Ryan Mason and Stellini are taking charge of training for all the players who are not gone on international duty. The Athletic actually wrote an article today surrounding Conte's time in charge of Tottenham. They've said that it's been a common complaint from Tottenham players this season. They have found Conte's training to be consistent, consist of predictable and repetitive drills, leaving them looking forward to international breaks so they can do something different. And then one of the other points has said that Tottenham staff also frustrated by Conte's public criticisms of the medical team, transfer policy, and his abrasive manner and his repetitive insistence that Tottenham were not set up to compete. So obviously these, it does look like he's burned too many bridges at Tottenham, a bit similar to at the end of Mourinho's tenure. But obviously we expect Conte to leave. But what do you think of all this talk about the Tottenham players kind of leaking to the media that they find his training methods repetitive and and dull, and you know they look forward to the international breaks. Like, do you think this is, like, when you hear that, is that the exact mentality that Conte is talking about when he talks about a cultural problem at Tottenham? Or do you think that Conte has to take responsibility for kind of motivating the players in training?
It's an absolute blend of all of that, really, isn't it? That's like, yeah, we classed him as an elite manager as he was coming in, and he's now going out, with all this hysteria around it. I think it's quite easy, and I've worked in marketing PR for many years. It's easy to kind of like focus on an easy point, like, oh, the players have started saying this, the players have started saying that, and absolutely, yeah, there could be some truth to that. There's no like definitive answer to that, but I think the main thing is, like, you can see the psychology, you can see the way that these players enter the field, the way they play is not quite right. And even under the Jose era, and obviously Pochettino's fantastic in most parts as well, you could still see a momentum of like, yeah, we understand what we're trying to do. We need to try and keep improving and achieving something. But as this season's gone on, it's like, when is this season actually going to end? And I think like there is absolutely, like, I'm going to be clear here. Like, I've always said that Conte was the best managerial signing we could get, because it's either going to go absolutely fantastically well and because he's a top manager, or it's not going to go great because of the average players, because of the potential lack of backing and all these other conversations. And Levy will have nowhere to hide. But what's been arguably disappointing, and this perhaps comes from his stubbornness and probably frustrates Spurs fans the most, from my perspective, is that I pay a lot of money. I travel very far to come to these Spurs games every other week, and I just see like a lack of any kind of form of tactics or system change, or at least bring someone on at 60 or 50 minutes, not at 90 minutes when it's too late. All this kind of stuff, and it's okay like once in a while, and you go, oh, maybe we'll change it, but then it's just happened. So your point is absolutely right, Sim. It's like, I think there's a mixture of blame. I know where the top blame is supposed to be, but if we're talking about the player manager level, there absolutely has to be levels of responsibility across the board. The players should not be able to get away with this again. Another manager, another arguably a top manager, getting away with that element of it again. But equally, the manager, after a period of time, because I was always like supporting Conte and everything, it's got to a frustrating point now. And you can clearly see that's evident in the way that it's being reacted in his press conferences, in the way that he keeps, like, I know he's ill obviously previously, but more recently is like that kind of stance between him and the club is becoming so apparent. And that will rub off on the players, regardless of what we believe they think or don't think. It will happen. And it's ironic because in the panel that I was going to be on with you guys earlier, when I was in the back end, we were talking about the YouTube videos. I know it sounds a bit simple, but I try and watch the training videos, they put in like the day before the game, and it's the same thing over and over again. And I don't know whether that's because they want to hide the tactics or anything, but I just look at the players and just like pass, pass, pass. No interaction, no excitement. And I could imagine that comment that you mentioned about like the repetitiveness of things is actually probably very true. And to some players that need stimulus or something exciting or energetic about it and enthusiasm towards them, it's just not happening. And Conte is not that manager. He's very passionate about football, but I think as a man management perspective, he's never ever been that. And even all my Chelsea mates said he's doing exactly what he did towards the end of his Chelsea career, just throwing toys at the pram, getting angry, using that emotion, and it's just not worked out. So it is a really, as I said, it's the best hiring we could have got, and it's coming to fruition as probably most Spurs fans thought it would. But again, the frustration massively from a Spurs fan's perspective is coming to these games and watching this awfulness every time and nothing changing. So it is frustrating. I do think Conte is a phenomenal manager and always will be, but it's just like chemistry, right? It just doesn't come together. Like Levy, Conte, it's never going to work. It was never going to work. And particularly Tottenham's ethos. And I do worry about the next managerial position, whoever that might be, is still going to come in for the same issues and the same problems. Will we be in this same conversation in 18 months, ruining another career of this kind of level of manager? It's it's one of those, isn't it?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And if what Sky Sports are saying is true, and because of this impasse at the moment between Tottenham and Conte in terms of the settlements of the compensation, like, how much of a disaster would that be if Conte is actually would that be a massive disaster now if Conte actually still remains in his job? Like, how can his job be tenable right now after what he said and what's been said in the press about him, Tottenham pretty much looking to get rid of him, and like what he can't have any more authority in the dressing room right now, can he? If that's all occurred, so surely it can't be like.
Yeah,
It can't be the case he stays on, right? Surely Sky Sports, they're saying it can't be ruled out, but surely it can.
well, yeah, because of his stubbornness, and it's now a stalemate, isn't it? It's like, what's that word on the old chessboard? Checkmate, isn't it? It's like, well, I can't move either way, and neither piece is going to move. So it's kind of a mad situation from the compensation side. Well, who wouldn't be stubborn to just hold on to that? Absolutely. Like, he's in a win-win situation. He probably even knew it from the beginning. Like, even his attitude at the beginning of being a Spurs manager was quite similar. That it was like, do I really want to be here? But I'm just going to do it anyway. You can read it like a book, and I think like it is literally one of those crazy situations where it could literally go either way in these next few days, in the next week or so. And because I actually think like Conte and Daniel are such big egos in their own rights and their own way, there may not be a conclusion to this at all, and it's literally just going to be like constant magnet trying to push towards each other, and it's never going to get there. And neither of them will want to budge.
It's pretty crazy, isn't it? It's crazy, like the way we're talking about who our next manager is going to be in the press and everything. Yet we still haven't officially sacked him. Like, it's pretty crazy when you think about it. We actually still have a manager. Technically, we're all talking about as if Conte's been long gone and he's been sacked. But in actual fact, he's still here and he is still technically our manager. So when I talk about like, Spurs haven't technically actually started talking to Nagelsmann yet. It's like, well, when I'm thinking about it, well, we still have a manager. Of course not.
Yeah.
Like, how we have to sort out that situation first. And it's pretty crazy that it's rumbled on this long, to be honest.
And the patterns, the patterns of the way our managers have gone in the past, it's always because that manager has come out and said something out of the ordinary or something against the club's motives or Daniel Levy's motives. And we know where that goes. Harry Redknapp did it with the England manager job. We've had Pochettino talking about furniture and appliances and some other weird stuff. And then you've got Mourinho, that's the funniest, craziest one, is the final. Like, really? Like, that is the ego of Daniel Levy. But now, as I said, the perfect managerial appointment was Conte, because it will show all the cracks to everyone, even the people that thought, oh, no, I don't really believe that's really happening in our club or it's like this. It was the perfect hiring, because now two giant egos are there for see. And you know what? No other club in the world is like Tottenham. Like, seriously, it's an absolute circus. You don't see clubs being talked about their chairmans and this, that, and the other every 5 seconds, or the hostility between the two. It is a bizarre circus club full of clowns, to be honest, and it is just like, it's beyond embarrassing, which the laughing
stock. And it's pretty mad as well. How many managers have to like call out how the club is run for people to open their eyes and see what a big problem it is? Like, I think people still believe like the chairman and the board are doing everything fine and they're doing nothing wrong. Yet Poch, Mourinho, and Conte all like basically trying to point out the problems here, and a lot of people don't want to hear it, but hopefully they'll start to listen now. Well, then again, I see a lot of people saying Conte was the problem and, get rid of him and all that kind of stuff. And I guess at this point, I agree he needs to go, but I still commend him for at least trying to highlight a lot of the issues before he left, and at least is trying to open a lot of the fans' eyes, to be honest.
Some of the players will be to blame as well, Sim, though. And I think
damn right.
Their ethos within the club, especially the ones that have been there for a long time, probably have that ability to go above Antonio to the top level and make a few comments and stipulations that can trigger that kind of move, because they always talk about like Spurs players being nice and this, that, and the other. And I do generally believe there's an interesting ethos there at Tottenham. And that could be a big stumbling point in the club as well, because you've got that relationship potentially between chairman and players. We know the chairman likes to pick players, and we saw it on the documentary and everything. His way of doing that kind of thing is that actually I think some of the players do have that influence to go up the top, over and above, and create an issue that maybe wasn't actually there, but they have the ability to do that because they've been there for so long, and they feel like they've got a right. Yeah, everyone's got a right, of course, but a right to a essential opinion that can really affect things in a serious way.
All right, moving on to the next topic, we're going to be looking at Tottenham internationally. Obviously, they're all on their international breaks at the moment. They have been playing over the last couple days, and we'll see how they've been getting on. Starting with Harry Kane. Harry Kane broke England's all-time top goal scorer record yesterday, scoring his 54th international goal for England in their 2-1 win against Italy in their Euro qualifier. Eric Dyer was an unused substitute throughout. But for you, Si, Kane now, top goal scorer ever for England. You saw how much it meant to him yesterday, scoring that penalty. Is he now England's best ever striker, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think so. I think certainly there's always an argument, like each era had its own kind of different oppositions, different kinds of quality of defense in their teams, and I do think Kane's had the opportunity to play against some incredible teams and players over his time so far. I think one thing that is really important to understand as well is the amount of games it's taken him to do this, considerably a lot less than Wayne, who was obviously another England hero in more recent times. So for me, he's the best England striker we've ever had, and I do believe in the Premier League he'll be doing exactly the same thing as well. Some would argue that he is, perhaps one of the best, if not the best, strikers of all time in the Premier League as well. Just on that goal record side of things, really, he's obviously got a bit of way to go to beat Shearer's aspects on the Premier League side of things, but from an England side of things, like there hasn't been anyone like him really, and I honestly I think he's got so much more to become almost untouchable in the national side of things.
Yeah, obviously he hasn't won an international trophy, but with that England goal record now and the Tottenham goal record, if he gets that Premier League goal record, surely that's enough to cement his legacy as a player. Yeah. He won't need it, like, even if he doesn't win a trophy, which obviously would be a tragedy given his how good he is. But with all those records, like, that will follow him for life. No one's going to forget him when he holds all those records.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, like, I very vaguely remember Shearer winning the Premier League. I was quite young then, but in the reality of things, other than that Premier League, I'm not sure. I don't think he had actually won anything other than that.
He never did. Yeah, he never won anything else. Yeah.
Yeah. So in my head, like, I didn't even really ever consider that Premier League title of '94, whenever it was, with Sherwood and all that, and that Blackburn team. I see Shearer as one of the top strikers I've ever seen in my lifetime, as I was growing up and stuff. And that's how I think a lot of people, and a lot of certainly the youngsters, I think they look up for massive role models, especially if they're like trying to replicate a specific position in their teams that they play on Sundays and stuff. Harry is the ultimate guy, like the ultimate role model, the ultimate professional. First and foremost, I'd love him to have had trophies like Ronaldo did, because I do think in some scale, obviously Ronaldo's like way up here. I don't think Kane was massively far off that. The trophy thing is, I'm not too phased about that, but from the fans, like in other clubs, are always going to keep bringing that boring conversation up every 5 seconds. I think in the reality of things, yes, of course he wants to win stuff all the time, I'm sure. But that accolade of goals as a striker is absolutely incredible. So, and it does make me laugh, like a lot of pundits on TV and stuff who probably never won anything either are able to sit there and critique everything so easily about that side of things. I don't think there's always ever been enough talk about how special and amazing Harry is. And that's not just me as a Spurs fan. It's as an England fan, as a football fan in general. I despise Arsenal, but I was a massive admirer Thierry Henry, unfortunately, but he was an incredible player. All of these great strikers, but in his own remit. And as I said, I think honestly, if he looks after himself, unless he goes to the NFL or something like I know he always wanted to try and do, he's got like at least 5 to 7 years ahead of him still. And I still think he could hit those 20 goals a season quite easily as well, just because of the way he plays and the way he's adapted over the last few years. For England, it's unbelievable. And hopefully, as we're always trying to be ambitious as England fans, I do think in the next tournament, with the lessons of the last one and how well we did in the previous one to that, Kane's going to be that big talisman to take us to potentially that final pip across the line to try and get us to win something, because it's a great opportunity as these other teams around us are becoming a bit more archaic and like dispersing a bit with all their great players that they've had. There's a prime opportunity, and Kane's going to be arguably at his prime right now, really, ultimately, but still so much to offer, so many more goals as well. And the shirt behind me, obviously, is in his name's right, a hero to everyone involved in Tottenham. And one day, maybe not right now, but in 10 years, 20 years time, 50 years time, if I took on the tour like Martin Chivers and all that, I have a massive admiration for the players like that. Never watched them, obviously, because I'm not that old. But like the fact of the matter is, it's going to be a name, as they say in my Egyptology courses and stuff, was that Tutankhamun will always be alive as long as his name is mentioned. And that's a prime example of Harry Kane right there. His name will forever be on everyone's lips as a Spurs fan for decades to come.
Yeah, and he could really obliterate that England record by a long way, because he's still, as you say, got many years left at the top level, not even hit 30 yet, and he's already overtaken Wayne Rooney, who took until I believe he was in his mid-30s to reach that record. So 100% his name will live on for a long time. And I think that record, if he carries on the way he is, that record it will be very difficult to beat, to be honest. So it's going to be very interesting. Moving on though to today, Heung-min Son took on Davinson Sanchez in a friendly of South Korea versus Colombia. Sanchez was actually an unused substitute, but the scoreline did finish 2-2, and Heung-min Son scored a double, including a free kick, which makes it his third free kick he has scored on international duty over the last year. And it just begs the question again, why the hell is Sonny not taking more free kicks for Tottenham, and why isn't he banging them in? But he's showing his form for South Korea. The other goal as well was actually a goal from outside the box. Was an open goal, but it was a good finish on his left foot as well. But good to see Sonny in form for the international side. And again, those free kicks yet again. What do we have to do to get Sonny over a free kick for Tottenham?
It's mad, isn't it? I guess he's taken a fair few free kicks and they've never come to fruition. And I can't remember the last time Spurs scored a free kick, probably the Eriksen era, if someone wants to correct me at some point. But for me, like, Sonny is an incredible player. He's very talented. He's not had the greatest of seasons. I think that's a lot to do with tactics, systems, positions, all of these things. Again, maybe leading back to that conversation about man management, or like what is really going on in that background. Yeah, he's usually a fiery, energetic, smiley character. I haven't seen that this year. But for his country, it's different. And I think you mentioned earlier, Sim, actually, about that kind of difference between a player playing for a place where they really are enjoying their football right now, to then coming out of the system into another way of, as you mentioned, like some of the Spurs players may be getting repetitive and bored, but then they go on international duty, it's like, oh, it's different, finally. And I think it's probably exactly the same position. They all love to play for their nations, absolutely. And I do think you get, to an extent, you do get different players for their club as you would different mentality for the national team. It's just always been like that. But for me, with Son, it's always been a big question mark this year. We could go on there forever, obviously, about the systems and tactics and stuff like that. But yeah, it's bizarre. I would like to see him take more free kicks. I think Porro has shown some great initiative in that since he's been in, at least having them on target rather than Rose Ed or wherever they go most of the time. Harry Kane, arguably actually rolling back a bit, is Harry Kane, one of his weaknesses is that free kick taking, which is very surprising because of how sweet he hits the ball most of the time. It's very interesting to see that.
Is that
That's a
Mike?
fire.
That's you. Yeah. All
It was
good.
me. Yeah, but yes, it is weird with Son, and I don't think it's just him. I think there's a lot of other players that we could attribute that kind of thinking and philosophy to, because many of the players have not perhaps performed well for whatever reason that is, but on national duty, completely different.
Yeah.
But great to see him on the scoring form. Maybe, hopefully, again next week if they're playing another game. But to bring that happiness maybe back to when we play Everton, obviously in a couple of weeks.
And actually, that game was Jurgen Klinsmann's first game in charge of South Korea. So Sonny helping out a former Spurs legend. So good on him. Cuti Romero played 90 minutes yesterday in a 2-0 win against Panama in a friendly, which is their first game back after becoming world champions. And they were greeted with a hero's welcome. I don't know if you've seen the videos circulating on social media, but it was something special to behold. Yeah, 100%. But finally, not finally, just quickly, I'll go over, if you want to see some Tottenham players in action tonight, there's Pape Matar playing against Mozambique at 7 p.m, although that might have been taking place by the time this video goes out. Kulusevski playing in a qualifier against Belgium. Destiny Udogie for Italy under-21s playing Serbia. And Elliot Krasniqi playing for Albania under-19s against Malta. So check those players out in action today on international duty. I'll be sure to give you an update tomorrow on how they got on. And finally, Hugo Lloris has returned from injury yesterday in a behind-closed-doors friendly against Ipswich. Actually, it was a 3-2 win for Ipswich, but Lloris was in goal when Spurs went 2-0 up, and once he got taken off, Spurs ended up losing 3-2. But Lloris is now back and fit. Do you imagine he'll go straight back into the starting 11 after the international break, Si?
I think so. I think as long as he's 100% fit, there might be another week's delay. Who knows? Depends on how he operated within the reserve game, obviously, and what happens after that from recovery. But like for me, he's the captain. He probably will just get chucked in just from that natural aspect. There's been an argument: has Forster been been an okay like reserve keeper when he's been coming in? Obviously, there's been some strange things happening, but arguably some incredible saves that he's been doing. Whereas we know, again, Hugo, like many of the other players, for whatever reason, hasn't had the greatest of seasons. Mistakes have been creeping in his game more and more over the last couple of seasons or so. And I do think goalkeepers have a bit of the short end of the stick sometimes, because they're obviously the last person, and if you do make a mistake in that area, it's critical, right? As in fully critical, because it goes in otherwise, right? Obviously. So I think that's been something that's crept into the game for him a bit more, and more fans are waking up to that. But the reality is, like he's been there for a long time. His age is, he's aging quite quickly as well. Well, no, faster than anyone else in the world, obviously. What I mean is like getting older. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. And correct me if I'm wrong, Sim, his contract ends this summer, does it not? Or is it the summer after?
I think next summer. Yeah. So he's got a year
so
left.
This is really interesting, because Tottenham, for some time, really have needed to do some proper research on a replacement keeper. I'm hoping one of the academy ones, like Whiteman or someone else, does accelerate, and that would be a great story for 100%. But I do think like the level of which the Premier League is, it's almost like you have to have someone that comes in that knows what they're doing. But from Hugo's point of view, he's been an incredible servant. It's been a really long journey with him, and I would not be surprised at all to see him straight back into that Everton team, provided obviously he's had a full recovery and he's ticked all the boxes by the doctor and whatnot.
Yeah, I do think it would be a bit harsh anyway, on Fraser Forster to lose his place, because he's playing some good form, and considering as well, Lloris wasn't in fantastic form when he did get injured, albeit his last game was that 1-0 win against Man City. But I do think he is our captain. He does have the respect of the team, although with a new manager coming in, who maybe he'll see it differently. But I do imagine Lloris will come straight back in for the Everton game, looking like he is now fit to play. Interesting to see what your thoughts are in the comment section below. But Si, thank you very much for joining me for this Tottenham update. Check out all our other content coming your way over the next few days, definitely surrounding a new manager. We'll keep you up to date with all the Nagelsmann links and anything that happens with Antonio Conte, so stay tuned on We Are Tottenham TV. Thank you very much for joining us today. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always, come on you Spurs.